I'm U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, and this is the Elephant in the Room.
Welcome to the Elephant in the Room. I'm your host, Cyrus Pearson, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Sophie Delquier.
Sophie. Our guest today is Cindy Hyde-Smith from Mississippi, and I know you grew up learning French, but did you know Mississippi is one of the first big words lots of kids in the U.S. learn to spell? Did you know that?
I did, yeah. And I remember learning it in school, too.
Let's hear you do it.
M-I-S-S-I. I butchered it.
M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I.
It's a tough one. You put me on the spot there.
No, this is real. It gets real on the Elephant in the Room. But then you got the ones who say M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I.
Oh, I have never heard that.
Really?
That's blasphemy. Yeah.
Oh, no, there's lots of ways.
Oh.
I'll give you one last chance before we get to the senator. Mississippi, can you spell it?
M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I.
Well done. Let's move on to today's The Elephant in the Room guest, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is great.
Now, Senator, one of the things I've always noticed about you, and today is no exception, and our listeners will not be able to pick up on this, is how stylish and put together you are.
Oh, well, aren't you kind? I've been on an outdoor tour for 4 hours, so...
And you still look this put together. Is this something that was instilled in you at a young age, or what's the deal here?
I like to shop.
Okay.
I'm a shopper, and, it's just kind of like every day you get up and you want to look like the senator. And
Yeah.
You got to keep that in mind.
Now, I found out something about you through your staff that really surprised me for somebody who is so put together, and that's you like dirt bikes.
Oh, yes. I've had a dirt bike since I was 5 years old.
So not only that you like them, you actually ride dirt bikes and
Yeah.
own a dirt bike.
Oh, yeah. I go to the mailbox on a dirt bike. We
Do
live
you
off the
really?
road. And like I said, I've had one my entire life.
Wow.
I bought my first one. My dad bought my first one for me at 5, and we put it on the back seat of the Oldsmobile and brought it home, and I've never been without one since.
I absolutely love that. I mean, there's something about a powerful woman who dresses well and looks amazing while doing what she does. But by the way, she rides a dirt bike.
Yeah, and my daughter's almost 5, and I don't even hardly trust her on a regular bike. So where were you riding at 5?
Well, of course, we live in rural Mississippi,
Yeah.
and, we had plenty of places to ride. It was a Honda Mini Trail 50, the toughest little bike ever made in the history of dirt bikes.
Little 50cc bike.
Yes, I mean, I wrecked it 1,000,000 times with still a crank. And now, we run the cows off the ryegrass with dirt bikes. We do it on horses as well, but it's just easier to run out and crank the dirt bike, take off, run the cows off the ryegrass, or run to the mailbox, and just very comfortable there.
Okay, now, can we talk about your name before we start talking about some serious stuff for a second here? Hyde-Smith. My kids have 2 last names. I'm just kind of wondering if you ever have run into situations with the hyphenated name.
There were 5 Cindy Smiths just in my church.
Wow.
My husband's Mike, and there's other Mike and Cindy Smiths that are married,
Of
so
course.
I really needed to be Cindy Hyde-Smith.
Well, thanks for clearing that up. I have wondered this entire time.
And some people say Cindy hyphenated Smith, so...
It gets complicated. When I go to the pharmacy, it is a nightmare.
Oh, yeah, it can be at the pharmacy, checking in a hotel.
Now, you are the first woman from Mississippi in the United States Congress. Is that true?
That's it.
So that's House or Senate side?
Correct.
Wow. You took the seat of retiring Senator Thad Cochran, and he served up here a long time. The 70s till 2018. He was the second longest serving member of Congress ever from Mississippi, and those are big shoes to fill. Was it ever intimidating to think about that?
Oh, absolutely. And, I was appointed by the governor,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really hard to say yes. He came to me, and he told me that he would like to appoint me to the U.S. Senate, and I was so flattered, but very reluctant. A month went by that I thought, I don't think this is it, but I'm so glad I said yes. I really, really am. And, I've ran twice since then, and I've been
Sure.
elected twice in a short period of time, but just so honored to serve in the position. I would have never on my own just went out and said, okay, I'm going to run for the U.S. Senate. I was very happy in my position as the Commissioner of Agriculture in Mississippi. I'd been elected twice to that statewide position. So it kind of came out of the blue. It really did. And it took a lot of getting on your knees praying of like, Lord, do you really want me to go to Washington, D.C.? And we 100% stepped out on faith.
You got all the signs. Faith is very important in your life. Did you want to talk about that briefly?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's just who we all are. I do have deep convictions. And when you're raised in the South, you're raised in the Bible Belt. And so you really don't know another life, and you just think that's common for everyone. And then you realize that, it really, sometimes it's not. But I just, had the amazing, fortunate childhood of being raised in a church. And that's just who we are and what we do on Sundays.
It's really wonderful. I have never had the honor to be asked or appointed to the U.S. Senate, but I can really relate to having to make a decision that's so tough that no matter how many pros and cons you go through, you have to leave it up to a greater force.
Oh, yes. And in the back of the chamber, it is etched in the marble, "In God we trust." So, that's just what I try to live every day.
Let's talk about party affiliation. Sophie, actually, you brought this up earlier.
I did. Yes, I had a question. So I think that not many people know this, and I recently just learned this, and I wouldn't say the most common thing for politicians, but you switched parties from being a Democrat to a Republican. Is that right?
Oh, yes. In rural Mississippi, everybody was a Democrat many, many years ago. And, including previous members that we've had to serve in Congress. That's just the way it was many years ago. We certainly switched parties because we're very conservative and we have conservative values, and it was just the thing to do if you wanted to be a conservative. We switched to the Republican Party, as many other members of the state legislature have done.
Of course, of course. And you had a very young daughter, maybe a newborn around that same time, and I'm wondering, did that have anything to do with that decision?
Not really. I mean, it's just who I am.
Right.
I'm a conservative woman, and she was 5 weeks old when I qualified to run for the state senate, the Mississippi State Senate, and I won in 1999. So that tells you how old she is. She is finishing up her first year of vet school right now.
Wow.
So she's just grown up in this her entire life. Remember putting her in the carry-all under my desk and rocking her with my foot as a state senator when she was just a tiny child. But, it worked for us.
But how taxing was that on you? Because we've had 2 kids, and 5 weeks out, I think we might have had our first shower 5 weeks after having the kids. How were you able to make this decision and, frankly, even do that? It seems like superpowers.
When you are carrying a child and when you're looking at the future and thinking about her future, you just want to do everything you can to make sure this is still the greatest country on planet Earth. Just felt very compelled to run for state office. So I knew when I was pregnant with her that I was going to do this, and she was 5 weeks old, and I qualified to run, and we beat a 20-year incumbent. First time I'd ever ran for anything. So we really worked, and it's a part-time legislature most years in Mississippi, so it was the perfect match, and it worked for us.
How did you feel? I know you were talking about faith and praying earlier, but to beat somebody, an incumbent like that in your first time running, I mean, it almost had to probably be surreal.
You smoked them.
We worked. We really did. It's hard to outwork a woman, just bottom line. It's hard to outwork a woman. So we got out there, and my husband, we always jokingly say there was 1.5 people that thought I could do it, is what he said, and that was all of her and half of him. But the people knew me. It was where I grew up. They had known me forever. They knew who I was. They knew what I was about. We just decided we were going to do it, and by the grace of God and a lot of hard work, we were successful.
So it made sense. Let me ask you the same question, kind of picking up on something we just talked about that I asked Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Some people think there's some dissonance between being a woman and having conservative values. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're where we are because of where we've been. And where I have been is raised in a very rural area with hardworking, self-employed parents. That's just the female in Mississippi, especially in rural Mississippi. We just grow up working hard, and everybody else is supposed to work. We pay our taxes. We do what we're supposed to be doing. And we just pray every day that, we're going to make this a better place. So I can see where some people say women may tend to lean a little more liberal, but it's where you've been. Mississippi is a great place to grow up because we do try to instill conservative values and to let everyone know that that's the life we live because it's the life we believe in of just Christian values.
And it's a great point growing up in a more rural community. As a little girl or as a young woman, you don't really have a choice but to get your hands dirty, right? I mean, things have to get done. I mean, that sounds like an amazing way to grow up and learn the values that you can carry on in your adult life.
And one of the interesting things is that Marsha Blackburn grew up about 45 minutes from where I grew up.
No way!
She's from Laurel, Mississippi. Her replacement in Tennessee is Congressman Mark Green. When she ran for the House, Mark ran for her House seat. He and I grew up together in a town that has one red light.
Wow.
And our parents are friends, but he and I are from the same hometown. So all three of us are within 45 minutes of each other growing up. And now we all three serve in Washington, D.C. at the same time.
That is remarkable.
Yeah. She said she had pecan trees where she grew up. Did you have pecan trees?
Oh, yeah. Pecan, blueberry
It's a
trees,
luxury
pear
just taken
trees.
for granted. Wow.
The
Yeah.
salads you could make were probably amazing.
Oh, yes.
I'm pretty well versed in plants, but I don't think I could pick out a pecan tree, actually.
I'm just glad you say pecan instead of pecan.
I was thinking the same thing. Me too.
Senator Blackburn changed us.
Oh, okay.
Oh, not me. I'm not a convert. I was always a pecan.
Sorry, I was a pecan guy, and then when she repeated it back, it offended my ears so much to hear it back. I'm forever changed.
Yeah, there are pecan orchards in Mississippi, just some companies that sell nationwide.
That's really great.
Well, I said I wanted to come back to your daughter because Mother's Day is coming up May 14th this year, and you have a daughter. How would you describe being a mother in general? Super easy, right?
I was
kidding.
born on Mother's Day.
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Happy Mother's
So,
Day coming up. Are
well,
you a Taurus, by
Thank
the way?
you. I'm
Do
a
you know?
Taurus.
Me
I was
too.
born on
Okay.
Mother's Day. And, it is just the greatest joy in life. I've been called senator. I've been called commissioner. I've had a lot of elected titles. But definitely the most important title that I wear is mom. And, to have that experience and that opportunity, I love being a mother. I wished I had a dozen children, but I only have one. We had a late start. I had my first, I was almost 40. So you don't have a dozen when you get started at 40. But it is truly the joy of my life.
That's amazing.
That's really wonderful. And do you and your daughter speak often when you're on the road and, she's busy with school? What does that relationship look like a little bit?
We usually FaceTime a couple of times a day.
Oh,
Speak
wonderful.
3 or 4 times a day. And she and her dad, they probably speak 7 and 8 times a day. But she has a cattle herd herself, and she, like I said, she's away at vet school. We're just a very close family, and when you farm, you have to kind of stay in touch with each other of what's going on and what needs to be done. Yeah, it's a pretty close relationship.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, we'll let a mother wax about her daughter a little bit. Vet school is very hard to get into, isn't it? I mean, there are limited slots.
She did not get in the first year,
Oh, really?
and it's usually easier to get into med school than vet school.
Wow. Yeah, did not
So,
know that.
I didn't know that either. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know that.
But we need a large animal veterinarian at my house because we are ranchers, and so we decided this is a good deal for us.
Well, tell us about your house. What do you have, cattle?
We do. We raise beef cattle. We run a stockyard. We have a live cattle auction every Tuesday. My husband's grandfather started that in 1942. Today's sale day, so my daughter and husband are at the stockyard today. We have cattle coming through the ring. My nephew's the auctioneer. And so someone said today, so you're really Yellowstone. And I thought, yeah, without the language, though.
Yeah, I love that.
And hopefully some of the violence. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'd be a little scared.
Yeah. So it truly is a family affair, a cattle family affair.
Oh, yeah.
I
No
love
doubt.
that. That's really, really
We're very blessed.
Now, you had talked about, or we had talked about earlier, how young your daughter was when you started this. And I think Sophie had a great question about, go ahead, Sophie.
I
Think you know
did.
where I'm going?
Yeah. So, what advice would you have for a young woman who wants to grow their family, but is not really willing to put their career in the back seat?
Well, I mean, you can actually have both. You really can. Things have advanced, and it's just so many opportunities. Luckily, we were a part-time legislature, so I was at home a lot with my only child, my daughter. But I just encourage any woman, do it for your children. I mean, it's like get involved for heaven's sake and do it for your children because we have to pass this on and instill in the generation behind us how important a democracy is and how it's supposed to work.
It's really powerful.
Well, let's tie that into agriculture and some of the things going on here on the Hill that you're involved in. You were the ag commissioner in Mississippi. You serve on the ag committee in the Senate, and the farm bill, which it expires every 5 years, is that
Correct.
right? Is coming up. Why is the farm bill important? What would you like to see in it? We have a lot of listeners, obviously, from the city, and I think they, a lot of times they forget about the middle of the country. So again, the question is, why is the farm bill important, and what would you like to see in it?
Well, to me, the Farm Bill and the Agricultural Committee is probably the most important thing on Capitol Hill. Remember, we're the ones that feed you. 2% of the population feed the other 98%.
Wow.
So, we do it pretty regularly, and we have the safest, cheapest food anywhere in the entire world. When you hit that drive-through and you get that sandwich, you don't have to think about when you're opening that wrapper to grab lunch, is it safe? Is what I'm putting in my mouth safe? But if we stopped all farming operations, if we quit gathering produce on the West Coast, and if we stopped the grain harvesting, and if we stopped slaughtering animals, we would have enough food to feed this country for 30 days. Think about that. So it's very important that we have the right regulations, that we have the right oversight, that we have the right safeguards and the protections that anybody you want to make sure is successful is the one that feeds you. So the Farm Bill is critical. It is very critical. And to, so many people, they think that the food comes from the grocery store.
Yeah.
And they have to look beyond production agriculture. You have to look up, yes, this is where our food source comes from. Because if you think people will fight a war over oil, you let them get hungry. And we don't ever want that to happen. There are so many people that say, well, I'm really not involved in agriculture. If you eat, you are involved in agriculture. But it is very, very important that we make sure that the safeguards are there, that they can get the crop insurance they need, because we don't need them to go out of business after 1 year of loss. We need them to replant and be productive the following year, because we have to continue that food supply.
This is second nature to you. I mean, when you were growing up, you picked your own food?
Oh, absolutely. Cut the okra, the squash, we canned it, put it in the freezer, ate it all year. It's just I learned to drive on a Farmall Cub tractor.
It's funny. I think a lot of people would see the lifestyle that you grew up in as quote unquote the simple life. But it's funny how the farm to table foods and getting the freshest crop has become such a luxury, right? Like there are these really expensive restaurants that
you pay a premium for it nowadays.
Yes. And it's like, no, that's how it should be. It should be a simple and seamless process. I commend you for your work on that front.
Thank you. And, it is very popular now. It's very trendish.
Yes.
And it's so funny that, the farm to table is like, we want the fresh, we're willing to pay the premium price for that. But, it's more than just niche markets. We've got to feed the world as well. And it's just like the rodeo attendances are the numbers are amazing right now because of Yellowstone, just from a TV series.
Isn't that amazing?
But that it's just brought to light that, it doesn't just happen. That sandwich just doesn't appear. That steak doesn't just appear, or those grains don't just appear. There's a lot of work behind that my job on the Ag Committee and working on the Farm Bill is to make sure that our farmers have every tool they need to continue to feed the world, that we don't overregulate them, that they cannot produce. And so many times, I find myself saying, just get out of their way. They know what they're doing, just get out of their way. But when you talk about pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, the things that it takes to grow a crop, this is truly the highest level of science.
So this is something for those people who think the food does just appear, and some people that I know they don't really know the inner workings of this. Why does this expire every 5 years? Is that a good thing, a bad thing? And what are some of the things you address when the farm bill
Well,
comes up?
things change and, different productions with the cost input,
Mhm.
with the cost of fuel, the cost of fertilizer, the cost of natural gas, because you have to have natural gas to keep your poultry alive in the wintertime. And, things change and the need for the crop insurances, the need for the different supplements in the farm bill. So you do need to readdress it and you need to look at it. But you just have to make sure that there are people at the table that really understand production agriculture to make these decisions because everybody has a good idea, but most of those people have never raised a crop in their life.
Right.
So, I will stand firmly any day of the week to make sure that we do have the folks in the room at the table that we can have a secure food supply for this country because that is national security.
Yeah, we've got some great representatives, and we've interviewed some of them on here, and even our chairman, John Barrasso, saying that, we need Washington to understand us. We don't want to understand or need to understand Washington. We need to make sure they understand us. Do you think we're at the point where we have enough people with the agricultural knowledge here representing people in Washington?
I feel confident that we're going to come out with a good farm bill. I mean, you have the input from so many organizations,
Mm-hmm.
from your commodities, from your producers, from your farm bureaus. Yeah, I think that we're going to come out with a good farm bill, and I do think that we have the people in the room that we need to have in the room. But, you have to play defense a lot of times because you have to feed the masses. It's not a niche group or it's not a farmer's market somewhere. We have to make sure we feed the masses that are outside of those individual preferences.
Let's talk about something else that might be maybe slightly more prevalent in your state, rural health care. This is a big issue for you?
Oh, yes, it's very concerning. Obviously, we've been through the pandemic, and it has just changed healthcare in so many ways. And we've had so many people to leave healthcare because they're just totally exhausted and burned out
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And we have to have our small rural hospitals because farming is a dangerous business. I just had a conversation earlier today about the accidents and things that happen while you're farming, and you have to have those local emergency rooms because of just, hypertension, heart attacks.
Yeah.
And I am concerned about rural health care. I truly am. And hopefully, we can go in a positive direction there.
Yeah, and not to stereotype or make it sound bad, but, what the internet says, rural populations often have, older patient populations, higher rates of substance abuse and mental health conditions, greater burden of chronic disease, like you said, higher rates of poverty, less access to the healthcare, and less likely to have health insurance. I mean, it sounds like it's a lot to tackle.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Not to mention the machinery. My boyfriend and I watch a farming show. That didn't grow up on a farm, but just really interested in it. And boy, it's no joke. I mean, these are really highly advanced pieces of machinery.
Oh, yeah, it's come a long way.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. And they're very expensive, very costly. And, financing is a major issue here.
What is the state of the family farm? And this, I'm kind of pulling an audible here, but how are things going? I know that a while ago it seemed like there were a lot of family farms that were going to have to sell to more corporations. Am I off the mark there?
And that has happened. So much of the younger generation is not wanting to go into farming. Luckily, that's not happening in my family, but it's hard work. It is huge risk. So our average age of farmers just grows every year. So I do have a concern that we don't have the younger ones coming in behind us to do that. And, corporate farming is corporate farming. There's a need there. But you never want to take away the family farm. I mean, it is just employment in so many areas that your big corporate folks are not going to come to. Every state, we have to feed the entire population. I don't know of anyone that says, I'm going to save money this week, I'm not going to eat.
Right.
That's not possible.
Yeah.
So it's very, very critical to save family farms.
Let's talk about one more issue while we've got some time. You attended a community college before attending the University of Southern Mississippi. With college so expensive now or various other reasons, what are your thoughts on community colleges?
Oh, I am a huge community college fan.
Yeah.
I really am. You know, it's local, it is less expensive, and there's so many technical trade opportunities there that, we need all of this technical assistance. We need these truck drivers. We need these HVAC workers. We need linemen at all the power companies. That doesn't take 4 years, but it's a very good, respectable living. Plumbers, oh my goodness. Just look at the need for technical trade, and that's where we have a shortage. So I'm a huge proponent of that. If you want to go to med school, you can still start out at a community college and do the same thing. But we certainly need to not lose sight of that because, sheetrock hangers, and it's not just trade school. It is a great foundation and a great place to get started, to transfer to a university if that's your choice. But you can certainly go to an RN program at a community college, an LPN program at a community college, and it costs less normally, but it's great experiences, and it's just the backbone.
Sure, and we've mentioned on the show before, but I mean, if you get one of these trade jobs, it's pretty much recession-proof. I mean, if your toilet breaks, you need to fix that toilet.
Oh, there's no doubt.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Those, and, it's such a respectable living.
It is.
The stigma had been there for a long time of you don't have a 4-year degree, and I see that stigma leaving.
I do
and
too.
It certainly needs to be gone because so many business owners, they go and get their training, and we're working on some legislation now that would actually make it easier for short-term courses to be covered by a Pell Grant because it doesn't now. And, it's just the opportunity that we need to make available because society, this country needs all of these workers.
Well, you're not defined by your degree, and let me tell you, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit and you happen to have a trade, there's no reason you can't turn that into your own business. You're not going to be stuck working for somebody your whole life if you don't want to.
And you have all these home builders now that build so many beautiful things and such a pride in their craftsmanship.
Absolutely. Sophie, anything else?
I do. I have one more question. Obviously, as a politician, there's things to be hashed out on both sides and interactions and negotiations. This is a question that I really enjoy asking other senators. I have had the privilege to ask 2 others, and I'm curious as to what your answer is. What is a relationship that you unexpectedly have a good one with another politician? An unexpectedly good relationship?
Well, I have a lot of friends, especially on the other side of the aisle, that you just have to respect each other. You really do. And I just have no problem doing that. I like making friends, trying to think of the things that I can share, in a setting such as this.
If it says top secret, probably not.
Probably not. I mean, just like the elevator lady down there, Delta.
Right. Yeah.
Delta's just one of my best friends. And every day we hug each other because she has such a sweet spirit. And when I first got here, we just made that connection. I look so forward to seeing her every day. She has such a positive attitude, and everybody kind of looks like, what's the deal with you and Delta? And I said, she's just one of my best friends here in Washington, D.C.
That is so wonderful. I would say that's a big green flag for me with a person is how they interact, with people in their natural environment, not just the other politicians, but supporting staff. People say there's red flags. That's a green flag for me. Absolutely.
And the stenographers on the floor, I started a Christmas brunch for them because they're so overlooked and they work so hard and they're on the floor every hour we're on the floor. And you'd be amazed at how many members, they don't know their names or they don't recognize them offside the floor. So when I first got here and I was trying to introduce myself and get to know them, I started their Christmas brunch. And they were just so thankful. But, it's just those folks that work hard that need as much recognition as anybody else. My goal is it's not all about me, that it's about the process, that I want to represent the people of Mississippi the best way that I can. And I want to work harder than anybody else in here. But when, you have to be a friend to have a friend, I think it's important that everybody needs to concentrate on being a friend.
So wonderful and refreshing to hear. I think a lot of people, the average person in the country, assume that every politician has a big ego. And it's always refreshing to hear, no, there's a human behind the politician and they have families and issues that matter to them. And so just hearing you, in a humble way, break that down is such a breath of fresh air. And I hope that our listeners will agree with me.
Well, we just try to work hard every day. And as Senator Stennis once said, never let the sight of that dome become common.
Love that.
Hey, let me ask you one thing before we let you go. You came up here and you taped something with the Mississippi Gulf Coast, I think, one time, and it was gorgeous. If people want to visit Mississippi, you don't have to go to a cattle farm. I mean, there are things to do. Can you pitch what you got in Mississippi?
Oh, absolutely. Mississippi, we're a large state with not very many people. We have less than 3 million people, but it's a beautiful state. And it's easy to taunt the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We have our barrier islands out there. When you have a commuter boat that comes to there, we have gaming on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We have beautiful hotels and beautiful beaches. So that's kind of a hidden secret down there. But we have a new aquarium that's there that is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
We have Paradise Point, which is a new amusement park that
It's
just
everything I
opened
like.
on the beach.
I think I'm sold.
And
My next weekend
yeah.
trip.
It's a great, great area. We have what we call cruising the coast with all of these cars that come from all over the country. Thousands of cars. It's just a huge car show called Cruising the Coast. So a lot going on down there, but it's a beautiful area, beautiful recreation area, and some good fishing.
Amazing.
See, I'm glad I asked.
I have one more thing, touching back on the elevator. I heard a funny story that you were stuck in one of the elevators here. I would love to hear that from your perspective. I heard that the elevator was stuck and they asked not which elevator, but which senator. And Senator, you said, does it matter?
Well, I had one other staffer on there with me, and yeah, you push the call button and this voice comes on, and I said, I'm in the Hart building and I'm stuck on the elevator. And she said, well, which senator are you? I said, which one do you like?
I just think that's so
Just
funny.
come get me. Who do I need to be? Which one do you like? Just come get me. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's too great.
Well, Senator, we want to thank you so much for giving your time today and having these conversations with us. Thank you for being today's The Elephant in the Room.
It's fun to be the elephant in the room. Thank you for the opportunity.
Our pleasure.
Since this is our Mother's Day podcast, Sophie, is there anything you'd like to say to your mother?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes. Big shout out to my mom. My mom and I are extremely close. We talk, I know that the senator and her daughter talk a few times a day. Not to compare, but my mom and I talk probably 10 times a day.
Wow.
And we are neighbors. So
No
you could say
way.
we're obsessed with each other. But my mom and I are super close. Happy Mother's Day to her. My mom and I are also very close in part to, some tragedies in our life. We lost my brother in November. So it has been a learning curve and a journey. So I want to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there who have lost children. And, recognizing that celebratory days can be hard and recognizing everybody who has lost their moms.
Well said, Sophie.
Thank you.
I'm going to take the opportunity as well. Mom, you're the best. You've always been so supportive. And it's great that when it comes to gifts, you don't need anything and you're happy with everything. I love you, Mom. And to my wife, Christina, the mother of our 2 children, you are tackling the hardest job you could have day in and day out. I could not do half as good a job as you, and I'm lucky to have you. I love you too. So happy Mother's Day to you both.
Cute.
Thank you. I still have to get them a gift card.
Yes, you do. Maybe do a little bit better than a gift card.
Yeah. If you'd like to be notified when we release new episodes, just hit that subscribe button and your listening platform will let you know. The Elephant in the Room is brought to you under the direction of U.S. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Our team includes Arjun Modi, Carly Rapp, and Elena Seiler. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next time on The Elephant in the Room.